Today we've got a 83 SC. Customer complaint is broken head stud. So I guess a lot of times we get the last, we're the last shop to see the car. Do a lot of repairs that way, but I never take a customer's diagnostic of broken head stud as the truth in the Bible, right? So you have, 5 things at your disposal. You have touch, taste, sight, sound, and feel. So first thing I'm going to do is a visual inspection, and then we'll go into the mechanical aspect of it. So, you can use a cylinder compression tester or a cylinder leakage compression. It's like something like this, right? So this is a snap-on cylinder leakage tester. We can use something like that to narrow down exactly which cylinder it is, but it takes way too much time. So at Olsen Motorsports, I'm going to show you how we diagnose that and go through the thought process. So I'm going to grab some equipment, grab some tools, and we'll walk through the process of how to diagnose either a weak cylinder, a misfiring cylinder, or in this case, a broken head stud. So follow along and let's get this done. All right, so let's grab our light. Let's do a visual inspection on this car. He's got his jumper cables. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna pull fuel pump fuses out here, lay them off to the side, and then we're gonna start this thing over. We're gonna turn it over and listen to it. A lot of times you'll hear the miss. So let's run it over. Doesn't sound to me, I'm not hearing I'm not hearing anything that would lead me to say that this car has a dead hole, a dead miss on it. So let's grab some diagnostic equipment. We'll plug in. We can't use a scan tool, because it's from the early 80s. So I'm going to use an oscilloscope. Kits for oscilloscope. So this AES Wave U-Scope Elite, this kit is $429. It'll do, it's only a 1-channel, and I'm going to use a 2-channel scope. But this kit right here is a fantastic piece of kit you can get for do-it-yourself, and it's, like I said, it's cheap. It's $429. So grab low amp probe. We'll grab the D10. So we're gonna run an ignition pickup, and then we're gonna run a low amp probe. So we'll run an ignition pickup off of number 1. So here is that cylinder number 1 right there. We'll plug this into our ground port here. And we're going to run that as channel 2. And then we'll run our amp probe on the battery ground, or on the battery positive. We'll run that in as channel 1. So we'll hook that up to channel 1. Then we'll ground through our probe. Cam, I'm trying to be productive here, not chew bones. So let's go back here and make sure, which we weren't on. A good signal. So this is going to tell us where cylinder number 1 is while we do a cranking compression test. So let's run in here to our lab scope, 2-channel lab scope. And then we're gonna run, let's put 5 seconds on the screen. Let's grab our amp clamp, turn it on, zero that out. That looks like a pretty good 0 right there. So you wanna make, on the amp clamp you got voltage. This is the voltage side. So we need voltage side going towards the load, and the load being the starter. Let's crank this over really quick. And we're not picking up a signal. Let's make sure we're going the right way. So let's change that down to a 5-volt signal. Something happened here. Yeah, we lost our 0. There we go. Let's look at our data. So this is a trigger. So this is channel 2, which is the trigger. And then channel 1 is our amp clamp. So this is every revolution of the starter, of the engine, right? So we know that we're on cylinder 1 right there. So we got cylinder 1. So if that's 1 and that's 6 and that's 2 and that's 4, 3, 5. So 1, 6, 2, 4. So cylinder number 4 right there is down on cranking amps. So if it's down on cranking amps, that's the cylinder in question that we need to look at. So I think next thing we could do is we could grab the leak tester, pull a spark plug out and do that. But what I think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab a low amp clamp, set that up, put my fuel back in, let's start and run the car, and then let's look at cylinder number 4 circuit to see what we've got going on with spark. We can do all that with the low amp probe. Okay, so I got my low ignition probe, got it connected to cylinder number 4, and I have fuel pumps back in. So let's do this. Let's go into here, into the lab scope. Let's do an ignition probe. Let's do, so 15 kilovolts, you want to see under 20, right? So over 20 means you have a super rich condition. Under 15 means you have a lean condition. There's multiple ways of looking at it. So let's do sloping trigger at 15 kilovolts. Let's start this bad boy up. All right, so looking at data here, I'm under 7.5 kilovolts. So 7.5 kilovolts, if I've got up to, let's say I've got 22, 23, it's too much resistance, right? So we're measuring resistance. What would cause too much resistance? Too much resistance would be too big of a spark plug gap, a bad spark plug wires, anything that adds resistance to it. So here I'm dealing with a low resistance on my number 4. Car's shaking just a little bit, but it doesn't sound and feel like it has a dead hole just from looking at this data. So I think what we'll grab next is we'll grab a pressure transducer, look inside that hole based off of this. So we'll look inside that hole and see what we've got going on. So I'll grab my pressure transducer, which I like to keep charged here, and we'll pull that spark plug out and we'll run this in that hole and see what we've got going on. So I can tell I'm dealing with some sort of a ignition circuit or something like that, because if I come back here and I flip the throttle, I do have a breakup. So I've got a little bit of an ignition breakup. Whether that's a dead hole or not, we need to look at the data and see. All right, so we're gonna grab our pressure transducer out of our Pico, and we're gonna pull spark plug wire out, and then we'll pull the spark plug out. So we need to grab a 5/8. We need to grab one of these guys. We need to grab our bent handle and our short guy. And we need some lights. So let's run back here and grab a spark plug out of this hole. Go for number 4 here. Pull this guy out. I don't know if you guys can see this. It's kind of tight access in here. Wow, that wasn't even tight. I'm pulling that out with my fingers. No tools needed. I'm trying to do this while it's still hot. It's fun. There's our plug. Let's look at this under the light. Pretty lean. So let's grab pressure transducer. Let's get this all set up and see what's going on in that cylinder. Okay, so we've got our pressure transducer hooked up. Let's go ahead and see if we can capture a waveform. I don't know if you guys can see that screen. You see the problem plain as day here. So this is the compression stroke here. Compression stroke, and this is the exhaust valve opening. So the exhaust valve has pressure in it. So I don't think we have a broken head stud. I think we've got a bent exhaust valve. So this exhaust valve right here should be at or near what the intake valve. This is the intake valve here. Intake valve sucking in and spiking up. So in my professional opinion, instead of broken head stud, I think we have a bad exhaust valve. So let's get this thing out and get it torn down and see what the data says and see what the customer wants to do. That is the fastest possible way to diagnose what's going on. If you use a compression tester or a leak down tester, so let's just say you put a mechanical leak down tester in there, you can get there, but you got to screw that thing in, you got to go to TDC, you got to run the leak down press, then you have to listen to the intake, see if you hear a noise, listen to the exhaust, see and hear a noise. This right here, the data can show you. So we're gaining pressure here. This should be in a vacuum when that exhaust valve opens, right? So the exhaust valve is opening, the piston's on its way down, it's pulling pressure out of the cylinder. So I think we have a bent valve. I don't think it's allowing the pressure to come out of the cylinder. I think that's where misfire is coming from.
Hey guys, Sam here, the media manager at Olsen Motorsports. Hope you enjoyed that video. We got a lot more good stuff coming along, so be sure to like and subscribe for more good content coming up. If you got any other questions, email us at info@olsenmotorsports and we'll get right to you and answer all your questions.